Hey everybody, I'm here to read chapters 19 and 20 of Almost Super for our PARP reading. Alright, so with no further delay, we'll just jump right into it. Chapter 19. This is no ordinary glove compartment. The city dump wasn't hard to get to. We loaded our bikes on the 259 bus heading north. We got off at Lincoln, and then it was a short bike ride to the dump. The wind against my hands and face was bitter cold. When we were almost there, Benny was the first to spot the device. "What is that?" he asked. I looked where he pointed. At first I couldn't see anything special, and then I saw it. Just above the mounds of garbage, a large white sphere sitting atop the cell tower. It looked like a giant golf ball. That's awesome. "Has that always been there?" Benny asked. "I've never seen it before," Juanita said. The gate to the dump was locked. We threw our bikes in the bushes and climbed a chain link fence. As a law-abiding citizen, I would never consider breaking and entering city property, but we were in superhero mode, and the superhero code allowed it. As we got closer, I could see the sphere a little bit better. It wasn't a smooth ball, but was made up of a lot of hexagons. It reminded me of a 20-sided die. "Should we call Dad?" Benny asked. "If we can get all the superheroes here, maybe we can figure out what's going on." I weighed our options. "If we call Dad," I said, "and Juanita calls the Johnsons, do you think they'll let us stay? Or will we just be the kids without the super suits again?" Benny didn't have to answer. "Let's take a look around first," I said. "We can call in the backup if we decide we need it." Walls of garbage stood between the tower and us. "How do you think we get there?" I asked. Juanita pulled out her phone and brought up a satellite map of the area. "This way," she said, and she was off and running. The whole thing looked like a maze to me, but Juanita seemed sure. She led us through piles of garbage and eventually came to a stop. I almost ran into her. It was a full minute before Benny came to a stop next to us, gasping. "Doing push-ups does not help you run faster," he said when he finally caught his breath. "You guys didn't save the day without me, did you? Although technically I guess it would be saving the night." I smiled in the darkness. No, nobody had saved the night, but that's what we were up against, I pointed. And at the base of the tower was a black van. About 10 feet away was a very old-style RV that looked like an enormous egg. It had a door and a window on the side facing us. The window was either dirty, foggy, or both. Someone moved around inside the RV. Benny looked over at me and Juanita. "A van and an old RV? We can totally handle that. It's not even a cool van like the ones we have in our motor pool." "I don't know," Juanita said to Benny. "I think you had it right the first time. I think we should call our families. Someone's moving around inside that RV." She pointed up at the white sphere. "Look at those scorch marks, and you can smell the sulfur in the air." "And can you smell the sulfur in the air?" From where we were standing, I could see black smudges against the white wall of the sphere. "It smells like the time I tried to microwave an egg and wrapped in tin foil," Benny said. I didn't want to watch somebody else save the day. "The van's empty," I said. "You guys can call and back up if you want. I'm going to see who's in that RV." I looked out the window again to make sure we were still alone. Benny whispered from the front of the van, "Holy gravy, will you look at that?" I spun around, my heart thumping. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Look at this glove compartment," Benny said. "What?" I asked. "He's got a T9 installed," Benny said. "I'd recognize a T9 anywhere." Juanita, whose head had been bouncing back and forth between Benny and me like she was watching tennis, finally asked, "Your parents don't let you guys out much, do they?" "This is no ordinary glove compartment," Benny said. You can put up to 2.7 sticks of dynamite in this baby, and there wouldn't be any—" "Benny," I said, "now is not the time or the place for discussion on glove compartments. Why don't you look inside the glove compartment and see if you can find who owns this van?" "Are you crazy?" Benny said. "You can't break into a T9. The only way we could get in there is if—" "Oh, it's unlocked. Never mind." If we were right, I said, this van will be owned by somebody named October. Last initial J. October is such a funny name, Benny said, as he shuffled through papers and pulled out the glove compartment. He pulled out of the glove compartment. Juanita continued to tap at the phone with a finger. Juanita continued to tap at the phone with a finger while I kept an eye out the back window. I found the registration, Benny whispered from the front. It's not October. The guy who owns this van is named Charles. Charles Jones. Jones. October Jones. I'm embarrassed it took me so long. We weren't dealing with a single supervillain. We were dealing with a whole other family. Instead of 3 kids up against a single person, we were now 3 kids up against who knows how many people. I came to the uncomfortable realization that I was very likely way out of my league. I looked back to Benny. Okay, I said. Benny, call Grandpa. Juanita, you call. Juanita sounded like she was in a daze. I don't believe it, she said. What? Benny and I said at the same time. When I saw the pajama man, Juanita said, he pointed this device at me and then laughed. I figured the phone told him what my power was. I'd guessed the same thing. But that does more than that, Juanita's eyes shined. This is the device. This controls that tower out there, which controls our powers. Or we can use it to get our real powers back. It took a moment to process what Juanita was saying. Our real powers. Jeez. Juanita held our real powers in the palm of her hand. Juanita, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, are you telling me that all you have to do is push a few buttons and we can finally be super? Juanita didn't have time to answer. The door opened behind me and somebody grabbed the collar of my coat and dragged me out the back of the van. That's the end of chapter 19. Chapter 20 is called It's Probably Safe to Assume You Don't Get Invited to a Lot of Parties. Do you guys get invited to a lot of parties? Super Bowl parties? Which the Bills should be in, by the way. Anyway, back to the book. Alright, chapter 20, here we go. My feet slipped on the ice, and I fell to the ground. I watched as a man jumped inside the van. There were the sounds of a brief struggle, and then the man came back out, holding the phone Juanita had just shown us a moment before. It was Pajama Man, the same one who had confronted Benny and me in front of our school. He wore the same stocking cap he'd had on when we saw him at school. He was tall and thin, with dark eyes that sat under fat and furry eyebrows. He wore heavy black boots and a thick coat. Juanita squatted just inside the van. Benny came out the side door. He looked like he was ready for a fight. I didn't think either one of them realized how much trouble we were in. The henchman pushed a few buttons on the phone and then slipped it into his pocket. So, what kind of critters have infested my van? My hand edged toward the phone in my pocket. Come, my dear, the man motioned to Juanita through the back door. It must be stuffy in there. Feel free to step out into the fragrant night air. The man spread out his hands and smiled. I would introduce myself, but I think I prefer my anonymity. I don't know how to say that word. I decided to press my luck. You don't need to introduce yourself, Charles. The man spun around to face me, his eyes becoming thin slits. How much do you know, boy? I said nothing. Let him wonder how much I knew. This was especially good tactic since the sad truth was I knew next to nothing. Well, it doesn't matter, Charles said, waving his hand. He turned to face Juanita. Please step outside. I put my hand in the pocket and grasped my phone. I tried to look casual. Charles stood there, his arms folded with an I hate you smile on his face. It looks like you three have been doing your homework. You've discovered something about your little family, have you? That's too bad. People don't live very long once they've met the Joneses. Juanita looked surprised, but she recovered almost immediately. Your family sounds like a cheery bunch, she said, climbing out of the van. It's probably safe to assume you don't get invited to a lot of parties. Pass me your phones, Charles said, snapping his fingers. In an instant, my brain formulated a plan. There were 3 of us. He couldn't catch us all at once. Run! I shouted, pulling the phone out of my pocket. Run and call for help. It was a good plan. It should have worked. Only it didn't. One moment I was running, moving away from the van. The next moment, I wasn't moving at all. A brief moment of disorientation and then nothing. Looking down at my feet, I realized I was 12 inches off the ground. I was flying. All right, and that is the end of chapter 20. Good book. Wonder what's going to happen next. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Go Bills.